Hello. I have a question for all of you. Do you remember who you were before the world told you who to be? When I was born, I was told that my name was Tiffany Marie Carpenter. Except for when I was in trouble, then I was Tiffany Marie James Carpenter. Though I hated being in trouble, I actually really liked the James, because for me, it balanced out the atrociousness of Tiffany. Tiffany was someone that my mom created before I was born, and when I came out, she gave me the name of the baby girl that she had been dreaming of, along with the expectations that actually came with being Tiffany. Yeah, if that wasn't bad enough, I was also born inside a cult. I was told we were in a modern day war, that everything that wasn't us was against us. Everything that didn't believe as us was against us. The ideology was so strict that everything in my life was defined for me. Everything in my world told me who to be. As a kid growing up in that environment, it was so difficult. We had strict gender roles, strict hierarchy, strict dress codes, strict lives in general. But we were in a war. And any day, we were supposed to be saved by God, who would put an end to that war. An end to all the sacrifices and the pain that we went through. Because believe me, we all had pain, and we all made sacrifices. As a matter of fact, we were told that that was where the righteousness was in the pain and in the sacrifices that we all made. But as I got older, it started to feel different. I remember the first time it felt more personal. I mean, I was used to fighting with my aunts and my uncles because I was a pretty independent kid. I was smart and I had a lot of creative imagination and ideas. And I was used to being told that things that felt counterintuitive. Like the first time I entered kindergarten, my parents told me she was on the wrong side of the war and she was gonna die. I totally didn't understand. She was so nice. So I was used to being told these things. But this time it was different. This time I was playing with some of my cousins and we were all very small. My dad called me inside and he said, "Tiffany, you're old enough now that you can't go without a shirt anymore." He said, "Tiffany is a girl." There you go. I said, "What? Tiffany is a girl." And I said, "I'm not a girl and I don't want to wear a shirt." Whew. I cannot tell you what that did to my worldview. I was 5 years old, and it was the first time someone told me who to be on the inside. I had no idea how to reconcile this, and what it did to my worldview, who the world told me to be, it was immeasurable at the time. Because before it was always outside things that they told me to hate, or that were wrong. This was my first real inside thing that I knew to be true about myself. But as I got older, it just got worse and worse. I had to wear dresses. I had to hate any people at school that I actually had anything in common with. I had all these purses. My parents were always finding CDs and destroying my music. I had to wear makeup. It was awful. But it just kept getting worse and worse because I had to mold myself into whoever they told me to be. And any time that I didn't go along, it was bad. So as time did go along, there was less and less of me on the inside that got to show up on my outside. Anything that felt authentic, it was incongruent often with my worldview. And the pain that it caused was immeasurable. By the time I was a teenager, I wished every single day to die because I couldn't be the person they told me to be, even though I tried so hard to do what they told me was right. Because inside a cult, what you don't understand often is it's us versus them. You can't just hate the bad. Love the good, you have to hate the bad. So if that's you, parts of yourself they say are bad, you start to hate you. And that is such a hard part and way to be. It made it so that I hated more and more and more of myself. And I thought I was never going to be able to fit in. When I was a teenager, I was proven right. I, like all teenagers, started going outside the lines a little bit. It's a longer story than we have time for, but because I couldn't or didn't really conform, and I really felt like I tried, I was sentenced at only 18 years old to 9.5 months in a solitary confinement conversion therapy where they tried to change me. So for 9.5 months, I was not allowed to talk to anyone inside the cult. Since I was already not allowed to talk to anyone outside the cult, I could talk to no one. And I was left alone almost 100% of the time, except for when I had to go to church 3 times a week and sit as close to We Are Now, but I couldn't make eye contact with anybody. And these were the people that I was told loved me more than anyone else. My days were spent completely alone, doing what they told me to do. I was trying to figure out a way to remedy my wicked heart. Those are the exact words they told me, that I had a wicked heart. It was a really rough label to accept. I was a human being with a wicked heart, someone who God needed to discipline because I was no good. I accepted that label wholeheartedly because I had known for as long as I could remember I was more James than Tiffany, more bad than good. It just solidified that I always thought I would be unworthy. But at least when I was alone, I found some peace in my unworthiness. But finally, after 9.5 months, they accepted me back in. And I really wanted to be loved. I wanted to be around the people that I thought loved me. But then a new problem started. And I wasn't doing anything wrong, but they just want to control you. And it was so hard for me. So my mom kept hounding me, and I really couldn't conform. So one day she told me, you live in my home, you should obey my rules. And I really couldn't do it anymore. I had no job, I had nowhere to go. But it got harder and harder. It felt like there was no oxygen in the room. So that day, I went down to my room, I packed some bags, I threw them out my window, and I left, and never went home again. So for the next 2 years, I was homeless, and lived in my car. I stayed half in, half out of the cult, trying to keep some of my family members that I love, but I knew I was on a timeline, and eventually, I had to choose to be free. But it was really more like lost. I had no idea, nowhere to go, no people. I felt directionless, purposeless, and I really felt unworthy still. Like my decisions and my wicked heart had cost me everyone that I ever loved. But one day at work, I started making friends with a guy who introduced me to cannabis. And I thought it was super scary. I had no idea what to think, but I figured, what did I have to lose? It was nothing like I expected. It really helped with digestion issues I had. It helped with overall anxiety, and I couldn't believe the wonders that it was doing. So he introduced me to the person that gave him cannabis, and that guy started coming to my house. It was so cool because he had a duffel bag of strains, and he would come over and ask me what I wanted. It really felt like every single time like it was Christmas when he came over. But one day when he came over, we were talking, and I told him about my past, about how I had just left the cult, and how hard it was. And how my parents told me I had a wicked heart, and how I never felt like I would be worthy or measure up. This guy was amazing. He sat and he listened to me. And looking back, I can really see how careful he was being, trying to recommend to me something. That he said he really thought I might benefit from mushrooms. And I was like, mushrooms, huh? I thought of them as nothing more than a party drug. I had heard of them for colors and visuals, and I was really interested in that because I have aphantasia. I can't visual things with my mind closed, eyes closed. So I thought, sure, let's go for it, you know? So the day came, my brother and I, we both had some of these drugs. We got out peanut butter, crackers, and mushrooms, and put them all on top, and we crunched away. It was delicious. We were like, this is great already. We had about 2 grams of mushrooms. And just about a half an hour in, we were giggling. We could not stop laughing already. And it was a really great experience being with my brother. If you've ever had a mushroom experience, you often know it comes in waves. And so as waves would come in, we would laugh and interact and have these really deep conversations, but then we were in our own little worlds. And for me, my world was changing in a way, second by second, that I could have never imagined. For one, I felt love. I felt loved. I didn't feel bad or other or unworthy. And I didn't feel like I had a wicked heart at all. I felt very much like the rules that I was supposed to be following had nothing to do with me at all. But they only had to do with the cult that I was born into. Cult. I don't even think cult. It's a funny word, cult. So I looked it up that day, on my trip, mushroom, cult. Somebody had mentioned this to me at work one day, and sure enough, I fell right, my beliefs were right in that category. It was so enlightening. I remember too that day being grateful for just being with my brother. Somehow I could see time-wise, we weren't going to be together forever. We were on different paths in our life, but I knew right then I was lucky to have him. We were laughing and giggling and making memories, and we had love then, and it would never not exist again. I could carry that love that I had with my brother and know it existed and come back anytime. In fact, love had been there all along, and it was coming inside. I could share it in that moment with my brother and with others, but the love was mine, and it was able for me to carry it anywhere that I wanted. That hit me hard, guys, just as much as when I was 5 years old and wasn't able to figure out how to make my inside and my outside really match. It was love, though, coming from the inside, and it came from and belonged to me. I wasn't a human being with a wicked heart. I was a human being with love. We all are human beings with love, but sometimes we just get confused as why we're here and forget who we are. And the mushrooms told me that sometimes people believe that we had a wicked heart or we're unworthy or. There's so many other things, but the truth was love's always there and always waiting, and we just have to allow it to be. That trip was almost 20 years ago. I know I'm older than I look, I really am. But I wish I could say it magically got better that day. It didn't. I did call my religion a cult when I left, and I had thought that I always was going to go back, but I knew that I wouldn't at that point. I really wanted to find a way to love myself for who I was. I wanted to be the person the mushrooms had told me that I could be, and be able to love myself as a human being with love. It took a while. Integration is really a lifelong process, and it's taken me most of my life so far to really do the work that the mushrooms really started that first trip. Mushrooms are the catalyst, but each individual has to do the work afterwards. For me, that meant finding my way through the world and finding myself. As you can see, I get to be myself now. I'm Alex, it's nice to meet you. I wish we had time to really go into my path before, like finding that 15 years and what it all really took for me to understand what the mushrooms meant when they said, I am a human being with love, and that I could be happy as myself. But it really took a long time before I felt like I became that. What the mushrooms really do is they give you back to yourself piece by piece and give you something to aim for. But I wasn't really equipped in any way or shape or form to take back my life at all. Not only did I have to undo all the messages that the cult gave me, but so much of who I was foreign to me. I had never met a trans person, as you can tell I'm trans. I had no idea what that meant. I had no idea how to bring my inside out. But anytime I hit dead ends, and I did often, I would go back to that feeling of love, and I would aim for that again. Mushrooms were the beginning of my journey, and today, they're a constant companion in my life. Anytime I feel stuck, I use them to go inside and talk to myself. But more than that, I'm really lucky that we live in Colorado, lucky that legislation has made it so that I can grow them. I spend time every day, and this is what I'm kind of famous for, is I talk to my mushrooms, I play them music, and I read them stories just like mine to thank them for the love that they provide. Because I personally know that without that day, without that medicine, I never would have known there was anything even to aim for but that unworthy feeling. I had no idea that there was anything besides a feeling of lack of belonging. But that's why it was so hard for me. But really when I got out, it was hard too, because the world is not really equipped to help you oftentimes. And it certainly wasn't equipped to help me, being trans, getting out of a cult. And when I look in our world, I find so many people that have that same feeling. They have unworthiness, they feel unseen, they feel unloved. They don't remember who they were before the world told them who to be. Our world today is so polarized. As polarized as my cult was, our culture has become. One of the hardest parts of the cult for me was actually something that when I look back, I'm quite proud of. I often got, when I was one-on-one with people, a different version of them. With me, they could voice their concerns or their gripes, or they could let down the rules a little bit. With me, they broke free and felt safe to just be who they were. But that version would disappear the second anyone else was around. It was really confusing when I was young. because we were inside a cult and I had no idea what was going on. So I would write in my journals and call myself everyone's guilty pleasure. But what I realize now is I was everyone's safe place. Like me, people were so tired of holding up this mirage, this fake version of who they were. We could just drop it for a little bit together. When I go out into the world, it's the same. All you have to do is watch TV and you'll see a commercial for some depression medication, anxiety medication, along with the side effects of those medications. Don't forget that part. People often have problems just living their day-to-day lives. And I get told by strangers how hard it is to do their jobs, to listen to their boss, to be in their own lives on a treadmill without fulfillment. But the stories that they tell me, they often have fear of even sharing with the people that they're closest to. I'm so grateful that they're willing to share with me because they tell me how safe I make them feel. But that's because I remember who I am, and I remember mostly what it felt like to be homesick for a feeling I had never had before in a place I had never been. And I feel like a lot of people have that because they want to feel safe being themselves, being authentic. That's the best feeling in the world. And mushrooms really can give you that back to yourself. They remind you of the love and the light inside, and that you can just be safe. In fact, studies show how much mushrooms can do for us. After just one dose, they increase your brain's neuroplasticity for up to 21 days. Another study shows that our DNA as humans is closer to mushrooms than even plants, and that when we consume them, we're getting things we can get nowhere else in our world. Another study even hypothesized that psilocybin cubensis mushrooms were a part of our human evolution 100,000 years ago, which is why we work so well with them. For me, I get to see evidence of their effects every day in my life. I work with therapists, healers, facilitators, and all kinds of humans with love through my company, Mush Love LLC, and we bring this life-saving medicine to others. But more importantly, we work with integration and community so that people have a safe place to explore these things in the world that makes it so hard. We do this world to change the world, and as a part of that, we ask people to go on our website and share their experiences of these mushrooms. So I'd like to share a few of those experiences that I've gotten from them, because my story has led to all of these other beautiful stories. So our first story comes from somebody that I consider a brother. He's actually here today, but he told me about this story where he tied a tie around his neck. He tied it to a door, and he wedged the door shut. He said, when he explained this experience to me, that his life at the time was plagued by feelings of anger, feelings of unkindness, and like he didn't ever have peace. He didn't really ever feel happy like he thought he should. He liked the idea of being happy and having peace, but he just never had it. So he tried to take his life. He almost succeeded, but his wife found him, and she saved his physical life. After that, she gave him the ultimatum of psychiatric therapy or going to one of these mushroom retreats that he had been looking at. He chose the retreat, and he credits it for saving his soul, not just his life, because it's many months down the road now, and he's had more trips. He's worked on that integration and healing, and found the peace and kindness and love that he was looking for. In my life, he's the kind of person that I feel blessed to be around and blessed to have in my life, but he credits mushrooms with bringing out that best version of himself, of giving him back to himself, of who he really wants to be. I love that. Our second story comes from a person that they left it on our website recently. It was a personal experience by a mother who came to mushrooms as a last resort in her life. In her words, she was overweight, she had no motivation, and she felt like she was out of touch with herself, and particularly her children. She didn't feel joy playing around with them or being around them. She said life was hard, working was hard, doing anything was hard for her. So she started out just microdosing in her life, and then she started seeing some results. All of a sudden she wanted to go on a walk sometimes. She wanted to play with her kids. She wanted to start eating better. And before long, she went all in and went to a retreat. Months down the line, she's a brand new person. She's lost the weight. She's at a healthy weight that she wants to be at. She's engaged in her life with her children and her family. But most importantly, she's the self that she wants to be. She shed just not the physical weight, but the metaphorical weight that mushrooms gave back to her, and now she can be present in her life. That all started with just a microdose working in the background. Our third story this time is from a gentleman who came at his second retreat. He was telling me how much the mushrooms helped him open up parts of himself that he had been hiding, because the world made him feel unsafe as a gay man. So he shut off so much of himself to others. He said after his first retreat, he went home and he could really connect with his partner again because he was more available emotionally and now able to be vulnerable again in his life because he felt safe again being who he was. And now he's back at his second retreat because he wanted to go further into that healing and further into finding the parts of himself he had lost along the way to the world. Our fourth story is from a woman who I met not too long ago. She told me that since single-digit ages, she felt suicidal. I thought that was amazing that she could share that pain from such a young age and that she had never felt any relief. She had done all kinds of things, from therapy to psychiatrics to all kinds of different pharmaceuticals. She came to a retreat and her journey was one of the most difficult I've ever heard of. As she told it to me, she said it was like an energy release where she had to feel all of the things she was avoiding for her whole life and really process them through her retreat. She said when she got out that she knows that this is just the start of her trips, but the most important thing was for her was that background noise of always wanting to leave this planet was gone. She was lighter, finally, after 5 decades of carrying around that pain. I have people coming to me hoping to just get relief from all kinds of things, emotional, psychological, all types of pain that they're in. Sometimes they're on pharmaceuticals, hoping to help that pain. Mushrooms are often their last resort. Days, weeks, months later, I get text messages saying things like, I just started forgetting my Prozac and now I just don't take it anymore. Or, my doctor halved my dose, or my doctor removed me from my medicine altogether. Every single time I smile because the mushrooms are doing the work. They give each person whatever it is that they need and they're giving them back to themselves so they can remember who they were before the world told them who to be. I have people who are even like I was in the beginning, hoping for a party. And then days, weeks down the line, I was not expecting the spiritual awakening. Those are my favorite because that's how I was. But the mushrooms always do the work for you and help you get that first message to get you on that path that you need to be on. Also, there are some days when I get messages that are just like, I'm in the rainforest, it smells amazing. I love those too, because sometimes you just need a vacation, and even the mushrooms can do that for you. Every week, I spend countless hours talking to humans who pour out their hearts to me. A majority of the time, it's about the pain and frustration and turmoil in their lives. Things like PTSD, ADHD, anxiety, depression, alcoholism, addiction, weight issues, self-esteem issues, you name it, they talk to me about it. And I'm so honored every time that people feel safe enough to give me their stories and then trust the mushrooms to help them do the work and to return them to themselves. The mushrooms speak to every person in the language that they understand. In short, they remind them who they were before the world told them who to be, and they do it with love. They help transform the pain that we're all carrying around from trying to change ourselves instead of loving ourselves. They remind us that inside love is always there, and it's stronger than any other vibration that we can offer ourselves, because it's what allows us to be authentic and real, and we can create a better way that way. And most importantly, they remind us we're the people we've been waiting for. There's no one else. It's all about us, and we're here, and it's our time to make the world a better place. It's like that quote from Rumi. Yesterday, I was clever. Today, so I wanted to change the world. Today, I'm wise. So I am changing myself. We're here, and it's our time to create a world individually for each of ourselves that we want to live in. One that supports you being who you were before the world told you who to be. Because once you remember, you don't go back. Your whole life starts to change. Just in the last couple of years since legalization has been open in Colorado, we've been able to have retreats there, guided sessions, microdosing hikes, and more. Since then, the underground community has started to grow above ground. And I can't tell you how many people in my world that remember. They're changing their own lives, and they support mine too. The more we share our stories and our journeys back to ourselves, the more that we find we have more in common, and we have more love and respect for one another. People that don't look like each other, don't come from the same backgrounds, and on paper, we shouldn't get along. But we do, because the mushrooms and the love that they create are what binds us together. It's a mycelial network connecting humans together too, and it's growing, expanding every day. So what about you? Do you remember who you were before the world told you who to be? Do you want to? Get some mushrooms and let them guide the way. Mush love.